Hi, ladies. My name is Shanira Brooks, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a story time. Most importantly, it's a warning, especially for women working in fine dining or luxury hospitality event spaces. Now, let's rewind back to 2019. I had just landed a hostess position at this beautiful fine dining restaurant on the Upper East Side, right off of Park Ave. It was like the kind of place where everything felt curated, the ambiance, the clientele, the air of exclusivity, and the kind of environment where names, again, carry weight and first impressions matter. And I was still green, new to that world, full of potential, but still making some naive decisions behind the scenes. That I can look back on now and say that, you know what, I wish I probably would have handled that a little bit differently, but I have a lot of grace for myself, especially where I am now in my faith. And I know that who I was in my past is not who I am today. So one night, a man walked in as a guest. And to me, off the bat, he looked exactly like Johnny Depp. So in this story, we're going to call a guy Johnny because he really reminded me of Johnny Depp. I don't know if it was his bone structure, his energy, or just my imagination, but I kept seeing it like over and over to him. And there was something about him, like he was intense, charismatic, effortlessly, like a cool type of guy. So I was intrigued. But then something felt a little bit off about him. He had this weird laugh, like it was way too loud for the place. We were not busy that night. It was like a few people in the restaurant, but we weren't busy. He was like one of the only few people in the restaurant. And it wasn't like a joyful laugh, like where someone's with family or at a table of five. It was like disruptive almost. Almost like I was wondering like what is going on, because he was just like laughing, and then I noticed that he was repeatedly sniffing, and not a cold, not allergies, just that quiet, persistent sniff. And at the time, I didn't fully understand what I was witnessing. I had never really been around that world, meaning like the discreet drug culture that was like pulsing beneath those upscale places. So the restaurant was one of the first environments, that particular restaurant, where I saw it up close. The private bathrooms, the quiet whispers, overdoses. Like I've seen it now at least over 3 times. Like the ambulances were frequently at our restaurant, and it would be where like someone just randomly went to the bathroom and suddenly you could hear someone like hit their head up against the door. They have like completely passed out. So cocaine isn't just a club thing, it can be a luxury dinner thing too, and many people have no idea. Like that's just something that they might not be fully aware of. They probably wouldn't assume that fancy people would stoop so low to enjoy themselves that they bumping stuff up their nose. But still, I ignored it because he was charming, we were laughing, and I entertained him because I definitely was still, again, immature, impressionable, taking people on the fact that, oh, they look good, they making me laugh and like all this stuff. So I was definitely, to be frank, like charmed by him. Now, at the end of the night, I was getting ready to leave when he asked me what time I was done. And I kind of shrugged it off because I noticed that people around me, like my management team, they were observing me, and I was like only 2 weeks into the job. So I was noticing like eyes, and people were observing that he and I had talked to each other basically the whole night. Like he was there for about 2 or so hours. Me and him talked the whole 2 hours that he was there. And my hostess stand was like definitely not nowhere near the bar. It was away from the bar and more towards the kitchen. So I had to kind of shrug it off in that moment, like I wasn't interested. But then when the bartender walked away from the bar, that gave him an opportunity to really speak to me and he leaned in and said like, let's leave. And I knew like I couldn't, he was instructing me on how to do it because he was like, they're all like watching you. So I'm going to leave out first and get us a cab. And then you wait like about 10 or 15 minutes and then come out after. So he left out first and time passed. And then within like a short while after, I got told, released. And then I'm like, okay, bye everyone, have a good night. And I left out, but I could feel like a very tense energy. Like, even though the management team didn't say anything to me, no one led on to nothing, I could just like sense that they wanted to say something, but they didn't make any comment to me that night because they probably felt what was taking place, but just didn't want to like draw attention to it in that moment. And so I left. And when I got outside, I'm looking around because I'm like, oh my goodness, because he made this plan for me to like meet with him to get in a cab, and I didn't see him. But lo and behold, he had the cab pull up like down the street so it wouldn't be so obvious that I left with him. And as soon as I got in the cab, he was like, all right, like, let's go out. And he said, let's go to Cornerstone. And Cornerstone is like a local Upper East Side hotspot. It's not nowhere fancy, ladies. So it's not a spot to like really be going to thinking that this is like where you need to go. It's more of like a dive bar, but still it was like a cool little low-key sort of atmosphere where I could tell like he was a regular. And it felt really adventurous, like being with Johnny Depp, so you will. It was fun. It felt like very I felt alive. Like in that moment, I felt really alive. Like I had so much fun, and it was not like even really doing anything in particular. We was just like walking up and down the street after we left Cornerstone and got some drinks and like food and everything. And we were around the town and just talking, and I learned a lot about him, and it was no like pressure or nothing like that. But I knew at some point, because I mean, it was just obvious that he probably was going to want to hook up. Now, when I left with him, I never had any intentions to hook up with this person at all. And I knew my mind wasn't there. Like, I just really wanted to hang out and have a good time. And so he said to me like, oh, you want to hook up? Like, he directly asked, and I was like, oh no. Like, I was very cut and dry. And he didn't like fight it or nothing. We still hung out. We hung out for, I would say, like about maybe an hour or two later. And then I was letting him know I needed to head back home because I live in Jersey at the time. And so he got a cab that took me closest to the train station. And when I got out the car, I'm like hugging him, me and him hugging each other off. And I noticed that he never asked me for my phone number. And it didn't click until like I'm out the cab and like on my way to get the train or whatever. And then I'm like giving him my number, rushing, so that I'm like thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like I don't want him to forget me. And like corny stuff that we do when we are like kind of beat and desperate. Not to say that I was crazy to not wonder why he didn't ask for my number, but it's like if he's interested in keeping contact, he will ask. Like, I don't have to remind this guy who's in his 30s about taking my phone number, but younger me thought that I had to like tell him as I'm getting out the cab, like, here's my number. And I gave him my number, and I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, he never wrote my number down. And he hugged me, kissed me off, and then got back in the cab. I got on a train, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm never going to see him again. And I think that was like, it was definitely a different experience, because for me, being the fact that I grew up in Jersey, I think like more like the culture of meeting different guys and stuff like that, like it's different. Like they handle things differently. They kind of don't really have that sort of confidence where they would go out with a girl and just like kind of be suave the whole night and fun to hang out with and leave the girl basically with no number, no contact. I don't know. I just personally, in the time that I have had experiences in from Jersey to New York, the New York one with this guy was kind of different and felt more adventurous. So it wasn't until like the next day that the story really began, and I walked into work acting like normal, and my managers, they were very like defensive, and they called me aside. There was no yelling, just a calm, quiet authority. Don't ever do that again. And they explained that leaving with a guest, especially right after your shift, is a serious liability. And if anything had happened to me, anything, the restaurant could have faced legal consequences and a lawsuit, a scandal, because this was a restaurant managed by a celebrity chef, press, their name on the line, because I walked out with a customer and I understood it instantly. I wasn't just representing myself anymore. I was representing the establishment. And I did feel embarrassed because I had just gotten hired. I was only there for like 2 weeks. So no one really knew the essence of my character, that I was genuine, that it was just really one of those things where he seemed like a cool guy. I liked him and wanted to have fun. But it was just careless to my position. And because in luxury spaces, our names are everything. And once it's questioned, it's hard to recover. But I also didn't feel ashamed on the flip side, because I was learning, and not just about boundaries, but about myself. No one was holding my hand anymore. I wasn't under anyone's roof. I was figuring out who I was. And sometimes that looked messy. Sometimes it is a messy journey when you're figuring yourself out and making a lot of, kind of bad decisions. And while I would never personally advise someone to do what I did, I also don't regret that night either. And I think something like in moments when someone's approaching us about our conduct, and genuinely you're like, but I really don't feel bad about that. Like, I get that it probably raised alarm, or it was dangerous, or it was bad, but I really deep down inside did not feel bad. I felt like possibly responsible and accountable, because again, if anything would have happened to me, then sure, it was a liability. But thankfully, nothing like that took place with me. Sometimes it's forged through experience, the kind that you never forget. Having discernment isn't always formed in perfect, polished moments. And that's something to keep in mind. And so here's what I want to say to women, especially those who are entering high-end hospitality jobs, whether you would be working at like high-end events, fine dining restaurants, high-end hotels, because I have even more experience with the hotel industry and guests, and that one can get very, very, very risky. Don't leave with guests, no matter how attractive, charming, or safe it feels, because when you return to work the next day and your name is being whispered instead of respected, you'll feel it. And it's an unease that it's going to linger. And in this industry, your reputation is currency. Let my story caution you, so you don't have to learn the hard way like I did, because I had to come back and basically really, really, really put the gravy on and show them like I'm a top employee, I'm responsible, I'll never do this again. And I had to build trust with my management team. You don't need to make the mistake to understand a lesson. You just need someone to be honest with you, and that person is me. Now, just to let you know, I created a free PDF guide that provides 100 key terms that every hostess should know. Make sure you grab that guide. The link is in my description box. All you need to do is just type in your email and a PDF is sent to you. And it's really helpful because a lot of people start off in restaurants and they don't have a clue the terminology. They think that communication is like the same as it is every day, and they there's actually a special language that we speak in restaurants that you want to learn and that you want to be equipped to understand when you're communicating with the chefs, culinary team, back of house team, and other front of the house positions. Now, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below. Like, have you ever had an experience where you may have hooked up with a customer or maybe even another employee and it turned out to be just like a bad experience? Maybe like you were mistreated afterwards. Like, let me know. It's no judgment. Again, this happened 2019. We are now in 2026, so this is not something current. But yeah, I'm very interested. All right, ladies, bye.